Alright, it feels extra. Good evening and welcome to the Monday, March 13th meeting of the Green Bay Plan Commission. We'll go ahead and start with a roll call. Chair Lisa Hanson, present. Vice Chair Jacob Miller.
Present.
Alder Jim Hutchinson.
Present.
Commissioner Sidney Bremer.
Present.
Commissioner Darius Daniels.
Present.
Commissioner Ken Ravinsky is excused. And Commissioner Michael Paradik.
Present.
All right, moving on to the approval of the agenda. Approval of the agenda for the March 13th, 2023 meeting of the Green Bay Plan Commission.
So moved.
Move approval.
All right, motion by Vice Chair Miller, second by Commissioner Bremer. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, and then moving on to the approval of minutes. Approval of the minutes from the February 27th, 2023 meeting of the Green Bay Plan Commission.
Move so moved.
Motion by Vice Chair Miller, second by Commissioner Bremer. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and then moving on to regular business, and the first item is a public hearing. This public hearing has been properly posted and public notification has been published in the Press Times. The Plan Commission is interested in hearing public comments on the subject agenda items. We invite your comments and ask that after your name has been called, you state your address, whether you represent a group or association, whether you favor, oppose, or are only providing information in this matter, and your comments or concerns. We also ask that you confine your testimony to the facts related to the proposal at hand and avoid repetitive testimony. City staff will provide a presentation during the public hearing, and questions raised by the public may be asked, but they will not be answered by staff until the upcoming actionable item. You must be recognized by the Plan Commission in order to speak, and please address your comments to the chair. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. And if you're calling in on the internet audio, you can unmute yourself at the bottom of the screen, use raise hand function on Zoom, or physically raise your hand, and also pressing *6 to unmute yourself if you're just calling in. We will now open the public hearing on item number 1, public hearing on request to amend the city's comprehensive plan for properties at 1035 Vanderbrack, 1030 Wisey, and unaddressed properties near 1119 Vanderbrack from commercial to low medium density residential, submitted by Community and Economic Development Department.
Thank you, Madam Chair. These properties are currently owned by the city and the city's redevelopment authority, and they are the future home of a proposed redevelopment sites. So the 3 parcels here are on some vacant land that would be its own development site, most likely for some sort of housing development, but should be determined at this point. Both of these parcels here are going to be part of another development site that would be linked together. This is the home of the old Eagles Club and Zozo's most recently kitchen. It's vacant now, again, all of them owned by the RDA. This is our current future land use plan for the comprehensive plan. It's showing commercial. This was obviously done many, many moons ago, in 2003, reflecting at a time when Webster Avenue was a much more commercial corridor, also when there was access onto Webster Avenue. So that's the existing comprehensive plan. We are recommending a change to low to medium density housing. This will be similar to the adjacent parcels to the south, be a lot more conducive to the uses to the east, which are Bayview Park and then other residential lots. And then again, more reflective of the neighborhood itself, and then the access restrictions off of Webster, because any access to these sites would be through these residential neighborhoods. So the first piece of this puzzle is this application, which is the comprehensive plan amendment to amend these 5 parcels to that low medium density housing. The existing zoning is light industry. Obviously not a great fit for this area if you're familiar with it. It's also immediately adjacent to R1 residential. So we'll be coming back at our next meeting with an application for rezoning on these parcels as well to an office residential. That's a really good buffer between the residential areas and then the commercial areas here. Also taking out that industrial zoning from a neighborhood is always a good call, especially when there's no more access onto Webster Avenue. So the first piece is just the comprehensive plan, which we are recommending approval of the request.
Okay, thank you, Steph. And then with this public hearing, we're looking to hear from anyone who would like to speak in favor, opposition, or would like to just give information. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item?
Sorry.
Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? Let the record reflect that no one came forward and this public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the corresponding actionable item number 2, consideration with possible action on request to amend the city's comprehensive plan for properties at 1035 Vanderbrack, 1030 Wisey, and unaddressed properties near 1119 Vanderbrack from commercial to low-medium density residential, submitted by Community and Economic Development Department.
I'm just realizing now that we're not supposed to give a recommendation at the public hearing, but
I realize what you were.
our recommendation is for approval.
Okay.
It's gonna be really hard to get used to.
Motion to approve. Second.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Pratic, a second by Vice Chair Miller. Is there any further discussion or questions for staff? Hearing none, I'll go ahead with a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, and then that will move forward then to City Council for the, is it the 21st?
Yes,
Okay.
3/21.
March 21. All right. Moving on to the next item, which is another public hearing. And again, this public hearing has been properly posted and public notification has been published in the Press Times, and the Plan Commission is interested in hearing public comments on the subject agenda items. We invite your comments and ask that after your name has been called, you state your address, whether you represent a group or association, and whether you favor, oppose, or are only providing information in this matter. So we will go ahead and open the public hearing on item number 3. Public hearing on request for the establishment of a planned unit development for the development of an auto sales use at 1577 Langlade Avenue, submitted by Michael Keane, Broadway Ford Hyundai, petitioner and ADF Real Estate LLC property owner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If you want to click to the next one. So this is a request for a planned unit development basically at the southwest corner of Langlade and Military Avenue. It's the current Green Bay Nursery site, about a 6-acre site, 5.8 acres actually. Has been in operation for quite a while. And what I would want to point out first is the original request from the petitioner was to just do a straight rezone to a C2 zoning, which is titled Highway Commercial Zoning. And during his due diligence, he held 3 neighborhood meetings. Well, a neighborhood meeting with the Neighborhood Association, John Muir Park, a meeting with the Military Avenue Business Association, and then another meeting that he had sent out notices 400 feet in all directions. And throughout those 3 meetings, he had quite a few protections to offer to the neighborhood, as well as some changes to his plan, so it kind of evolved over time, and that straight rezone from a R1 and C1 zoning, low-density residential and general commercial, switched over to a planned unit development request, and so that's what you see tonight. So I do want to point that out, and the fact that if it was a straight zoning, staff would probably have a very different, I guarantee you staff would have a very different recommendation. So this is the current, or the future land use of the site. One thing you'll notice is Argonne Court, which was Argonne Street, would have continued through down to Beamer at one point. That was vacated many, many years ago. And what you see as far as future land use goes is general commercial up at the corner, which I call the northern half of the site, which is going to be referred to later as Development Area A. And then on the south, it's R1 low density residential, mainly singles and twos. What you see in that darker brown color is a medium density housing, medium high density. It is a assisted living facility, but it obviously has more density. And you'll notice around there, to the north along Military is general commercial, everywhere else is low density residential. Click to the next one. This is the zoning map, which generally follows the comp plan. So you'll notice the northern half of that site is zoned C1, general commercial, and the southern is zoned R1, low density residential. And then same with the area. This is just a little bit of a better view, a 3D view. So what I kind of wanted to point out here is Argonne Court has primarily singles, or excuse me, Argonne Drive, primarily singles and two-family uses, along with Beamer to the south. And the property line does kind of sneak through those backyards and right next to the senior housing. So just to get a look at that. These are just the views of the nursery from the south and from the northeast. And this really is kind of the meat of the matter, and a lot of it is in your packet as a planned unit development. So as you know, the planned unit development is a zoning that's written right over the top of the property. The reason we chose to do the planned development is to sort of codify those protections that the applicant was offering up to the neighborhood and to get the development going. So I'm just going to hit some key topics. Again, broken into development areas, development area A and B. A is the northern, not quite northern half, but where it's really adjacent to the residential uses, or not adjacent to the residential uses. That is going to be the primary user area. So that's where your sales is going to be, your service, auto display, where the new sales building would be. You can see that's kind of conceptually outlined in blue. This is a conceptual site plan provided by the applicant. The south, which is outlined in the red dash line, is development area B. That is going to be primarily for vehicle storage that are being repaired, employee parking, and then also along the side of the building, on the west side is where you would access the internal auto wash that's inside the building. Hours of operations are regulated, and I guess I would point out that the PUD was drafted based on the presentations to the neighborhood and to the business association. So there's a couple question marks by the hours of operation. We had put it at 8, which was originally in the presentations, and the petitioner, I think, would like to make a case for different hours. From staff's opinion, about 9 o'clock, our quiet time in the city, our noise ordinance is 10. Because of the integration to the southwest, we are recommending 8 o'clock, but not a deal breaker for us, I guess. There is some dimensional regulation changes in here from the regular code. The maximum height of a building would be 35 feet. Pervious surface max is 80%. Setbacks is where you're going to see a drastic difference. So the front setback on military would be a 15-foot setback on the property line, but on all other borders, which is about 1,600 feet, and Langley, that would be, I should have added Langley to that. But everywhere else, it would be a 25-foot setback, which is our largest transitional yard that we require by code. And again, that was offered up by the petitioner. It's quite a big setback now and heavily landscaped. And that is something that the petitioner has said he would continue to maintain. Primary access would be through 2 sites, one driveway on Langley, one on Military. The Langley drive would be sized for delivery trucks and that type of thing. The Military would be a right-in, right-out access only, as there's an unmountable median on Military at that location. No other access points would be permitted. There is frontage on Argonne as well, but no access would be permitted on Argonne to this use. Lighting is always a concern, especially with the highway commercial use when it's adjacent to low-density residential or even medium-density residential. Just that light sources are usually much, much higher. Again, I'm not going to keep saying the petitioner offered some of this stuff up, just understand that he has. But in development area A, it would pretty much follow regular code. That is bordered by 2 streets, commercial on both sides. But in development area B, that would be limited and primarily to be a protection from the neighborhood, or to the neighborhood again. So a maximum light pole height would be 15 feet. We're encouraging bollard lights, which are low, usually 5-6 feet high. But we would do a max of 15, which is our lowest allowable lighting in our code. Signage, we would not allow any signage except for fronting Military or Langley. You couldn't have that facing, west or south to the neighbors. And then landscaping, which is pretty important. I mentioned the size would be an increase of 25 feet. And within that transition yard, we are required to have a 6 to 8 foot tall solid fence. And then we would double our requirements on our landscape code for transitional yards. So buffer yards typically are required 1 tree and 5 shrubs per 50 linear feet. Those don't have to be spread out, they can be kind of clumped. In this case, we would double that. So it would be 2 trees, 10 shrubs, or combo thereof. And if you can zoom to the next one, Stephanie, please. So these are some of the things that the petitioner had shown at his meetings, as well as submitted with his plans. I won't go into all the details, but you'll kind of see the plans. You'll see the 25-foot setbacks on all sides except military, the limited access, sort of how the building itself functions. So the showroom is on the furthest away from the residence. Service is in the middle there, and then parts, technician workspace, CW is the car wash, and then the locker room. So obviously, the intensity of the uses kind of increase as you go away from the residence. And I believe that was intentional. You can answer if it was. I think it was. And then there's just the concept of another Hyundai dealership. This isn't necessarily what this one would look like, but that is sort of, I believe, the new franchise standard. If you go to the next one, please. So some of the lighting that was proposed at the neighborhood meeting, so you'll see the low-level bollard lighting, modern bollards. The wall packs are all full cutoffs, which means all light is directed downwards, it doesn't spill out. And so in that back area and throughout the site, there would be a combo of those different light fixtures. But again, in that area, the limited access secure area, which we call B, those are limited, no taller than 15 again, and we are encouraging the bollards. Also the fencing has yet to be determined, but some of the examples that the petitioner had looked at and seen out in the universe were these styles, which are all heavily screened fencing. And again, that's going to be in combination with landscaping. So currently, I believe what's out there now is this big row of arborvitae, which, to my understanding, the petitioner will do his best to maintain and keep it going. And we meet the requirements of that transition yard. And then the last thing I guess I would kind of mention, there is no collision center in this facility, and for vehicle testing or test drives, not that they can regulate where everybody drives on the public street, but they would direct everybody to exit out onto Military, around down to Lombardi, along the highway to Mason, back down Military to get back to the site, so that there would be as much encouragement as possible as they can do, the sales force can do, to not have the people drive into the neighborhoods directly to the west. And there you go.
All right. All right, so now,
But I guess I do want to point out, if it wasn't a planned development with the protections that were offered and that are now written, codified into this code, a straight C2 staff would adamantly oppose. We also want to point out the underlying zoning of C1 and R1 is not changing. That would still remain the same. And the underlying comp plan recommendation of low density and general commercial would remain the same, but this planned development would be over the top. So it would allow the franchise dealership to operate within the bounds of that PUD. And that's an important point that I forgot to mention as well, that it would be for a franchise dealership only. So some people kind of wonder what that is. That is sponsored by an auto manufacturer. The reason that that is put in there is typically, in almost all cases, and I'm not a professional in it, but the franchise dealerships have a much higher standard on how their dealerships are operated than just a regular used car lot. So if anything were to change from the plans that are in here, or a dealership, they would have to come back through the process to get approval and to change that. We would send out notice again, have more neighborhood meetings. So there you go.
thank you, David. All right, so now with this public hearing, we're looking for people who are speaking in favor, in opposition, or comments only. If you can just state your name and address for the record, and keep your comments to 3 minutes. Again, you can ask questions during this, but questions will not be answered during the public hearing portion.
And I know some people who could not be here but asked me to read their
Oh,
things as well.
okay.
So if you want me to do those first,
Go ahead
I
and
can.
start, yeah, go ahead.
Maybe you heard too much of me already.
No.
So I'll read these, some get a little bit long, but I'll try to read fast. March 8th, Attention Plan Commission, my name is Daniel Burrich, excuse me. I am the principal owner of DSF Holdings, which is a property owner of Bay Motel and Family Restaurant. I'd like to state my support for the approval of a planned unit development at 1577 Langlade by Broadway Ford Hyundai. I attended the informational meeting at at Broadway Ford Hyundai on February 16th. The meeting was well attended by residents in the area. Main concerns by several attendees were related to traffic. Michael Keane did provide some projections which were not well received by some of the residents. I do not believe this issue should play a major role in denying the proposed PUD. The arguments against the traffic issues are, one, the nursery has always had high traffic demands during spring, early summer, and early fall. They also had heavy traffic on Saturdays during these periods. In reviewing DOT traffic reports on Military Avenue, I noticed a decline from 2006 to 2018. Daily counts north of 9th Street went from 14,900 to 11,900, and traffic counts south of 9th Street went from 13,600 to 10,700. The small increase in traffic that Broadway Hyundai may generate should be minimal and would most likely be absorbed by the daily traffic within the area without notice. If the test drive route is conducted the way Mr. Keane has suggested, the neighborhood west of the property should experience minimal traffic increase, granting an east exit off the property, which would allow, that would be Military Avenue, which would allow traffic to turn right heading south to Military, would help reduce traffic at the stop sign intersection on Langley. Any safety issues that were brought up during the meeting regarding exiting the property on Langley would be minimized by parking restrictions on the south side of Langley near the entrance exit. I believe the development would be an asset to our business district and would help keep Military Avenue strong and viable. Second one is from Leah Weicker, although she is here. So I will not speak for you.
Sure.
Okay. Next one is from Sharon Anderson. She is the owner of 1515 Argonne Drive. As property owners at the home at 1515 Argonne in Green Bay, which is about 400 feet of the proposed planned development, we would like to affirm our approval of the PUD for the building of an auto dealership. Our approval to have an auto dealership move onto the property is based both on quality of life and privacy. We would ask the city allow the dealership to add a driveway, ingress, egress onto Military. Property values are impacted by traffic patterns and flow. Having the additional entrance egress onto Argonne would be detrimental to housing values in the neighborhood. Additional traffic on Argonne would also create safety issues for many children. Walk or bus to Kennedy. Those children, along with many recreational walkers in the neighborhood, must walk in the street as Argonne Drive does not have a public sidewalk. The owner of the proposed dealership has assured us that his business would have no public address systems on the property and that the business would maintain regular business hours so that neighbors would not be disturbed in the evenings. The addition of the dealership on the property would also allow neighbors to maintain their privacy. We have been told that the other alternative to the property might be a 4-story low-income apartment complex. Such a property would obliterate any privacy that those near the property have in their yards. Additional residents to the area would also increase traffic flow into the neighborhood and may increase both noise levels and crime rates, as has happened with such housing on Western Avenue. For those reasons, we ask the city approve the PUD so that the property can be redeveloped to an auto dealership with access onto Military. Next one is Hillary Locklear. Good morning. Hillary Locklear, she owns the duplex at 1591, 1593 Beamer. My question with the proposed automobile dealership is, if this goes through, will my taxes go down? If this is built, I know my property value will go down. My taxes just went up an embarrassing amount. There really isn't any residential properties in the area that justify these amounts. Definitely not if this goes through. Thank you, Hillary Locklear. And the last one is from Alderman Eck. She unfortunately could not attend. She is attending a different event this evening. But she has attended 3 separate listening sessions regarding development proposal by Michael Keane, owner of Broadway. After seeing his presentation showing his plans for the new Hyundai dealership and his willingness to agree to a planned unit development, which includes many considerations for the neighbors, such as low-level lighting, ample setbacks, desirable fencing, landscaping, etc., she is in favor of the project. I have also heard from neighboring homes and businesses that although some have reservations at first, have shown their approval after seeing the plan presented by Mr. Keane. I have had several conversations with Mr. Keane, and he has shown a genuine desire to be a good neighbor and has backed it up with his actions by agreeing to the planned unit development. Again, I am in support of this project.
All right, thank you, David. All right, is there anyone else from the public that would wish to speak on this item? Just come forward and state your name and address for the record. And confine your testimony to 3 minutes, please.
Good evening. My name is Gary McFarland, and I would like to thank you for the opportunity to present our thoughts regarding the proposed zoning on Langlade Avenue. My wife and I own our home, which is located on 1508 Argonne Drive, which is located within the 400 feet setback of the proposed project. We've owned the home since 1970, and owned and lived in it since 1975. We are here to strongly support the proposed project and related zoning change. The proposed plans that have been presented adequately address our concerns regarding potential traffic control, lighting, and noise issues. We do feel that it is important for the project to be granted direct access for traffic to exit and enter on Military Avenue. Thank you for this opportunity to share our opinion.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Leah Weicker with Military Avenue Business District at 425 South Military. Our MABA board met to discuss this project, and I have also attended all of the meetings with Mr. Keene, and we are in support of this proposal. I think Mr. Keene has done due diligence to a lot of the concerns that we heard from the neighbors, and one of our board members is a current next-door neighbor to him, Keith with Keith's Hair, and he had nothing but good things to say about being neighbors, and he really, even with the collision center being in that location, he doesn't hear noise coming from that business. So we are in support of the proposal.
Thank you, Leah.
Go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
Good evening, Michael Keene, Broadway Automotive. I'm the owner of Broadway Automotive. I'm here just in case you have any questions for me at all based upon the planned unit development. We're excited to put the project in front of you, and hopefully we can stay on Military Avenue.
My name is Gregory Gay. I live at 1421 Argonne Drive. My backyard abuts this property. A big concern of mine is I think the noise issues have been addressed satisfactorily. I'm still not clear on what the lighting would be like in the automotive area. I see at different dealerships, 40, 50-foot high intensity with a large lighting field that could affect our property and affect our property values. So I would like there to be some sort of shroud or pointing away from the residential, maybe towards Military Avenue, that would address that concern.
All right, thank you very much.
I'm Becky Glazer, and I live at 1415 Argonne Drive, next door neighbors to them in the backyard of where the dealership is going. At first, I was hesitant to have a dealership in our backyard, but having listened to all three of his presentations, he does seem to be listening to what our concerns are. We did, when we moved in 35 years ago, there was a double row of cedars there, and you could not see the nursery behind us. Those have all thinned out. He has said that he is going to thicken up, replant, fill in those double row of cedars. He mentioned that he was going to have a fence in there. I think he's going to match the existing height that's there. He said we wouldn't be able to see through that. He said he was going to keep the lighting low. If all of that happens, I think it would be a good thing for our backyard versus some of the other things that would have an opportunity to go in there. So I think he has listened to what we've had to say, and as long as he follows through with all those things, I would welcome him as a neighbor.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to speak?
Hello, and good evening. My name's Alex Leishon. My property doesn't touch the border of this property. It's actually across Argonne at 1626 Langley Avenue. And we're one of the few housing, residential houses that has a second story. And our second story, we have blinds. So it's not like it's the end of the world, but we have a street light that's right out the window on the corner there. And it shines through the window. And I'm worried that even with low lighting, there's going to be light pollution during the night, and it will come through that window. And easy fix, get new blinds. However, I just don't see the need that the dealership even needs to build in this location. They have 2 locations further north. I see a better location being right off the highway at the old Circuit City building, kind of across from Popeyes, because people drive past there, they can see their inventory. I guarantee you they get way more people looking out over there than they do on Military. The only way I could think that they select Military is because they said they have the 2 other locations, which I drive past them every single day. And for the last few years, their lots haven't been very full. I don't see why they need a new lot. The other thing that I could suggest for the location, and I heard, and it kind of almost came off as a threat, was that there's going to be apartments put there if this wasn't put there. And that kind of comes off as sounding like a threat. I feel like you could put apartment housing there for older residents. My grandma lives at a location where they have to be 60 years old or retired people. You could have duplexes put there and have age restrictions and things like that as well. I also think if you wanted to keep attraction in that area for Military Avenue, because of it being in proximity to the football stadium, have something else there that's attractive to people that come to the area, like restaurants or I don't know, some sort of entertainment type location. Nothing comes perfectly to my mind, but I just feel like there's other uses for that property that could be better, and I feel like this isn't really needed, especially for this location. And thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Let the record reflect that no one came forward, and this public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the corresponding actionable item, item number 4, consideration with possible action on request for the establishment of a planned unit development for the development of an auto sales use at 1577 Langlade Avenue, submitted by Michael Keane, Broadway Ford Hyundai, petitioner and ADF Real Estate LLC property owner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So you got the presentation just before. I did want to address some of the questions that I heard, the ones that I can't. Petitioner, if you open the floor, we want to address the others. But the access onto Military Avenue, I have checked with our Department of Public Works. They will allow access onto Military as a right-in, right-out. It would have to meet code standards, which is 305 feet south of Langlade. But when I looked at the plans, they weren't to scale, so it was hard to measure, but it looked like it would fit in there. Let's see.
Yeah, and again, as far as that traffic pattern, again, pointing out that there is a hard median in the middle, so we can't have the left turns off of there, so.
Yes. There was discussion on the lighting concerns. So I did want to mention in the PUD, and it's on page 3, what you have under F. So development area A, which is the north, we just follow regular code. But to the south, which is development area B, again, we would limit it to no higher than 15 feet. Low-level bollards are going to be encouraged as well. And the other thing that I would mention is we have in the PUD that lighting shall be timed so the light levels are no greater than 0.25, this means much to anybody, but 0.25 foot candles at the property line adjoining residential uses between the hours of 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. So that is when our most of our codes start at 10 and start up again at 7. 0.25 foot candles is the most restrictive lighting that we have. It's very low-level lighting. And again, there's ambient lighting that's out in the world, that if you stand outside with no lights on, there's still light, but .25 is low, that's like a residential light level. So a regular with a full cutoff, I believe it allows .5 at the property line or even further. So I just wanted to mention that, that is in there. We do have the fencing requirements. On the last one was the potential other uses, or the, to paraphrase, that this use might not be the highest and best use for this location, for the reasons mentioned. And there was at the neighborhood meeting discussion on if this use were to go here, what you would get instead would be a taller multifamily building. And the only thing I can mention with that, remember that zoning, that base zoning is R1, which doesn't allow apartments,
Right.
and C1, which doesn't allow apartments. So the underlying zoning does not permit that. Now, you can come and request it, just like anybody else, to change it, and it would go back through the same process. And then also densities are regulated as well, how many units. It is a 6-acre site, so it's a pretty large site, so you could probably get some units in there. Let me see. And I guess when it was mentioned that maybe a restaurant or entertainment use would be better to address the commercial corridor and the proximity to the football stadium and the Titletown district, staff would still support that on the north half. But again, the south half that's adjoining all the backyards of those neighbors, we're very protective of that. So even that commercial use, you'd have to take that size down in half. So it'd really be about a 3-acre site rather than a 6-acre site. Now that being said, I don't know if I addressed all of these or not. We were pretty impressed with the offers to do the screening, the increased screening, and the offer to go back with planned development. So again, it's not just a straight investment situation in our minds, it's to get this business operational, and if it were to go away, the PUD would likely go away. Now, another dealer could go in there and operate the same, but we wouldn't object to that at that point. So we are recommending approval with 2 conditions. One is that the draft PUD be adopted, and 2 is that the 2 lots be consolidated into one. There's a property line right there.
Okay, thank you, David. So again, that putting the PUD over it is more protection than just a straight rezoning.
Much, much more.
Okay. And yeah, I do feel like there was a lot of, you really did take into consideration everything that the neighbors were saying, because it did seem like there was a lot of very thoughtful little pieces in what they were looking at as far as the site plan. So I certainly appreciate that, being the good neighbor, and it seemed like all the neighbors were, for the most part, on board with this plan too. Go ahead, Commissioner Bremer.
Since the PUD does have the advantage of being able to make some fairly specific requirements, could those requirements include some specifications as to the use of the bollards or the lighting that is in the area closest to Argonne?
Yes, you could require the lighting in that development area B or A or anywhere on the site. You could regulate the lighting because it is a PUD. Staff had put the 15 in because that is a regular code standard, still pretty low. And then with the addition of the timers to drop those light levels down after 10 p.m., we were pretty confident that that would not be a very large impact on the neighborhood. When you have military just not that far away, which has a lot of lights on it as well.
Would it be your recommendation then not to go beyond simply recommending the use of bollards?
That is up to you. Well, I don't have a recommendation one way or the other. We wanted to provide some flexibility while still allowing the protection, or allowing the flexibility but providing the protection. So if you felt there needed to be more, that it would be the purview of the commission.
Thank you.
Question for staff.
Yes, sir?
Regarding the public address system, I did notice that was in the PUD. Can that be placed in the PUD as a requirement that there be no public address system used on site?
Sure, you could put that in there. The reason that didn't really make it into our PUD draft is that we do have a regular noise ordinance. So any type of PA or anything that would be going off after hours, we would go out there and give them a citation to turn it off. Anyway, although I guess the first time it might be annoying. But I don't see, our 10 o'clock late hours are much later than what we have in here as at 8 o'clock, basically quiet time back there. So, and that is, I guess, one other thing that I would like to bring up as well, is that I know the petitioner had a little bit of reservation with the 8 o'clock time, end time. So if he wants to bring it up, you may want to open the floor. I forgot to mention that to staff report. Did that answer your question, Michael?
Yes, thank you. I also want to just point out, I think the neighborhood meetings sounded like they were really productive, and it's great to hear that. That was a lot of feedback received, and they're doing what they were supposed to be doing with the neighborhood meetings, so I appreciate that. Motion to approve?
Do we have any
With
queries?
with contingencies listed by staff and with the requirement for lighting that's at his address?
The lighting that was in the code, Michael, or different?
I'm sorry, I don't know the technical term for it that you mentioned before that.
The bollard lighting requirement? You'd like to
Yep.
require the bollards and not allow the 15-foot talls?
Correct.
Okay. That would be a
Oh,
new,
an
a new
adjustment.
condition that the lighting in area B be bollard style only.
So I think we should try to get the floor open.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Do we want to let this die and then open the floor?
I feel like, yeah, do we have a second on this, on the motion to as is, but with the additional, that it's changed to the bollard, B-O-L-L-A-R-D, right, bollard lighting versus the 15-foot.
Sorry, I couldn't unmute myself. I do second that, thank you.
Okay.
I'm just concerned about the time.
I wanted to open the floor.
I would like to address that, yes.
So do we have to vote for a motion?
How about this? Michael, can we convince you to pull your
Hold on.
motion for the moment?
Oh,
First, open the floor.
Well, we can open the floor now anyway. It doesn't,
yeah, we can still open the
You
floor.
could,
at
but
the
it's still going to
moment.
be under this motion.
Yes. I thought procedurally we had to let that.
You should
Oh.
let it die before you
Okay.
get into discussion again, but you don't have to, from my understanding.
Do a roll call.
Well, yeah, I mean, the problem is that this might be a motion that I like, but I don't know yet.
Yeah.
we can't open the floor now?
Sure.
Well, no, we should, I
You
think
could.
we probably just,
Should vote.
Oh, motion to open the floor.
you think we should vote first?
Well, I think Robert rules the order. You said
Okay,
you
you're
have a
right,
motion
yeah,
on the
okay.
floor, so-
All right, so we've got, so we'll do an individual vote then, all right. All right, so the motion is approved with bollard lighting only, correct? Is
In
that?
area B.
And,
Don't we have a motion to open the floor?
Well, you have to act on this motion first.
That's why I was asking if Michael would pull his.
Can't have
highlight.
multiple open motions.
Yeah, we can't
In order to
open-
open the floor, then I withdraw my motion.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for.
okay,
You're okay with that, Sam, your second?
Yes.
okay, so we're withdrawing, all right,
Trying to
so,
keep the rules.
no, I appreciate that, all
Thank
right.
you.
Okay, so now we have a motion to open the floor from.
From,
Commissioner Raddick
Oh,
and
was it?
second
Okay.
for
Second.
Brimmer.
Yeah.
okay, all right, so we've got a motion by Commissioner Braddock, second by Commissioner Bremer to open the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, do we want to, do we have questions for the applicant?
I would ask the
Okay.
petitioner to come forward.
All right, if you could, please, Mr. Keane.
Hello.
I guess let's start with the time. What?
The 8 o'clock?
Yeah.
Okay, so So if I could give you a brief history. So early 2000s, we were open Monday and Thursdays until 9. And then we were closed Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday at about 6. Then we went to every Monday through Thursday till 8, Saturday, or Friday and Saturday until 6. This is just sales, because they're open later. And then during COVID, we pulled it down to where we close at 7 o'clock. And I would love to keep it for 7 o'clock as long as possible because it's great for our associates, it's great for their family, and quite frankly, after 7, our traffic's very minimal. The only concern that I have is CarMax is trying to get into the neighborhood and AutoNation's trying to get in the neighborhood, and nationwide, they're open until 9. I do not want to open until 9. But if they come into town and then I move it from 7, because right now we're at 7, and I would probably try and move it till 8 and not move it. And then as a business, if I felt that we needed to stay up until 9, that would be the concern. Because right now we're 7, and I would like to hold on to that as long as I can. And I hope that the state of Wisconsin doesn't ever change the law to be open on Sundays, because that's is awesome for our associates. We have 500 people. They all have families, and they all need their time. So that would be the reason for the time. I'm in no desire to race to 9 o'clock. But if National comes in, that would be my only concern. And I can come back to the board and then ask at that particular time. So I'm okay at 8. I think if CarMax were to come, then I would just come to the board and ask for a variance. I think I can do that. Can I?
You could amend the PUD.
So I'm okay with 8 because I have no desire to go to 9. I was just trying to make it seamless just in case, because CarMax will come. I just don't know when. So that would be the time question.
Would that be just for sales or service?
Just sales.
Okay.
Just sales. There are some dealerships that do service until they do 10-hour days, and they're usually done at 8, but we don't do that.
And then the lighting.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Sid's got her hand up too.
Oh, go ahead, Commissioner Bremer.
Thank you. Would you also be so good as to address the bollard lighting suggestion?
Okay, so if you could go to the photo that has the area B, for example. So in area B, so between the, I don't know how to, can I go up there?
Go ahead.
Okay. So the goal of this is to make this secure. So as soon as the service area is closed, the gate's closed. And so then that's just our overflow new car parking, service, our associates, etc. So in this area, I think it would be difficult to offer safety and security for our associates and our guests, or if a tow truck's dropping off a car with just bollard lighting, because I don't think bollard lighting can do it all. If you, there is a Hyundai dealership in Countryside, Illinois that I suggest that you look at, because you could take a Google Earth trip through it. But I would think that there's going to be a couple of post lights in there. And then at when our sales operations closes, I would like to pull the pole lighting down, and bollard lighting would be the security lighting that would be there overnight. And I don't know how many, I'm not a lighting expert, how many bollard lights would be on. And during the neighborhood associations, or during the neighborhood meetings, one of the things that I discussed was a Hyundai height fence. Because my goal is not to have any of our headlights or our lights wash into the neighborhood. And if the bollard lightings are behind that, I'm assuming it would control the light and keep it on our property and not on the neighbor's property. So I think it would be a safety issue in winter with ice, et cetera. I think it would be a safety issue to be 100% bollard. That's a concern for me.
But as I understood, you would suggest bollard only being active after the rest of the campus is closed?
I think you asked if it could just be Ballard after. That would be my goal and my intent to do that. But I don't have the lighting maps on how they do that. If I needed to keep something on somewhere, I do have to provide safety and security for our people that are back there. My goal is to keep it down, but if there's one light pole on in the middle, because I may have to. But again, my goal is to keep the light on our property and not on the neighbors.
It sounds as if you would be very comfortable, though, with requiring that it be Ballard only except for necessary safety lighting.
Correct. That was my intent going in. I'm just not a lighting expert, so I don't know whether I can pull it off.
And I appreciate your concern for your associates as well as the neighbors. Thank you.
Am I allowed to ask a question about lighting?
Not at this time, the floor, well, not at this time.
Once you're
It's done.
I mean, the floor is open. All right. Do we have any more questions for the petitioner?
I also appreciate the clarification on safety. Thank you.
All right, thank
Thank
you.
you.
You can just state your name and address for the record.
Becky Glazer, I live right behind the car dealership, where the car dealership is thinking about going in. And we keep talking about low lighting in section B, but I live in the section A section, which has got our backyards right up to there. So I'm wondering what the lighting is going to be right behind that building, right along the property lines there.
Can I answer?
No, actually, all comments addressed to me, to the chair.
Okay. And then go ahead.
Okay, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Then my second question is the height of the fence. We're in our backyard all the time. Right now, we have, I believe it's an 8-foot fence, and you can't see through that standing up or doing anything. He refers to a Hyundai fence height, and I don't know what that is, but I wouldn't want to be able to go to the fence and see over it, even though the headlights won't, because the car is lower. I don't want to see over it. I like the height that it's at now, and I was just wanted to clarify whether that's the height that we're trying to get to again. Those are my two concerns.
All right, thank you.
And if you like, so I can address the fence heighting, because we're requiring, I'm not sure what Hyundai's heights are, and I get what Mr. Keene's getting at, is the block
So
headlights.
right,
and stuff.
block the headlights,
We're requiring
right.
6 to 8 feet.
Right.
So
Which is taller than
probably taller.
any
than-
SUV. I mean, my
Well,
minivan is pretty
I
big.
would think
and
so,
it's
maybe a camper or something.
7.
And then as far as the light levels go, the different lighting that's allowed. So in our commercial districts, lighting heights and intensity is regulated by what they call cutoff fixture. So like an old gas light that's just an open light on a pole, that has very low light levels and can only be 15 feet high. As you start covering it, so it, I don't know how to, here's the thing, and the light's up in here,
Right.
and it shoots down, then the heights increase and the light levels are allowed to increase. And as far as, lighting plans go, yes, when a lighting professional gets out there, what they're gonna do is, they're gonna model a bunch of different lighting scenarios and try to get a coverage. There is a standard, I don't know what it is, but a standard level for safety. It's just so you don't trip while you're walking around, or there's not shadows. And that, oftentimes, it depends on what type of fixture you're using, how much the LED is, placement, vegetation. I mean, all those have factors in where you place the lights. I don't know if the petitioner would be able to actually lay them out at this point, without paying somebody to do that, on the site itself.
But they still have that, what, did you say, 25-foot buffer?
Yes, with an...
With those, and those are where those tall arborvitae are right now?
Correct, that's where they are now, and even if they were to be gone, you would still have double the transitional yard landscaping requirement and the 6 to 8 foot high.
Right, the 2 trees and 5 bushes, 10 bushes.
Every 50
Instead of
feet.
1 and 5.
Yep.
Okay. Okay,
I
so
don't know.
all of that, as far as the
Maybe
lighting in that section A, that's been addressed as well, because it's those ones that are shooting down, and they're on time, they're gonna be on timers.
Well, not in Section A, that's only
Oh,
applied
that's
to
the B. Oh,
Section
you're
B.
right.
Section A, because it's commercially zoned currently, it's across the street from commercial property, and it's on a commercial corner. Staff didn't feel the need to add additional requirements onto that northern portion. It was really the southern. The northern portion currently is zoned commercial. Comp plan recommends it commercial. So yes, there are neighbors next door, but all the recommendations,
It's always been the same.
it's always been that way. So, I mean, you can add that. We didn't feel it was necessary because it was something that was always there.
Right. Do we have any more questions for the petitioner? The floor is still open.
Motion to close the floor?
Second.
Motion by Vice Chair Miller, second by Commissioner Daniels to close the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Point of order.
Oh,
Okay.
Sorry.
oh, did I miss the
Yes.
hand? Oh, okay.
Yes.
Can we reopen the floor?
We sure can. Motion to open the floor?
Motion by Vice Chair Miller, second by Commissioner Pratt to open the floor. All those in favor?
My
Aye.
name,
Any opposed? All right, and state name and address for the record.
Alexander Leishon, 1626 Langlade Avenue. I just wanted to ask about the lighting question. This kind of is a two-question wrapped into one. If their inventory of cars, are they going to be dropped off on like a two-story semi-truck? And if so, depending on where the lights are placed, 15 feet is getting like pretty close to level of semi-truck. I mean, it's getting pretty low. I'm not saying, I work as an engineer, I'm just saying it's getting close. And I don't know if that might be an issue with some of these light fixtures. Now, maybe when you get further, like in the outskirts of the area, you have the bollards, which are shorter, I believe, if I'm,
Bollards are about 5 to
Yeah.
7, yeah.
okay. So I just wanted to put that on the table and to be considered about height, because some of them, just engineering-wise, might have to be a little higher out of safety reasons for semi-truck drivers and unloading of inventory of cars, because you don't want to, hit the car at a light pole 15 feet in the air. And that's all I wanted to say. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
That 15 feet was only for the backyard, wasn't it, for the B?
For the back area, and, I mean, you'd have to place those lights so they're not interacting with.
Right, that's all part
Your
of, that would be the
delivery.
site plan.
That's more of, the internal
Logistics.
operations
Right.
and how he's gonna deal with that. Yeah, you would not, I don't think even a one level car carrier is gonna fit underneath a 15-foot light pole. So it would have to be off to the side or on an island
Yeah.
or something where it's not gonna be directly underneath. And to kind of give you an example, so a non-cutoff light fixture is a 15-foot maximum height. What they call a semi-cutoff, which allows, that's where the light is here and the shield is here. That can go up to 25 feet, and a full cutoff can go up to 40 feet. So there's drastic differences as you cut the light because it does get focused. So in that front area, again, where trucks may be coming in, and where the display area is, you could have taller lights that would be up to the petitioner, and the light levels that he's looking to achieve.
I guess so.
Motion to close the floor?
We have a motion by Vice Chair Miller, second by Commissioner Bremer to close the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
So, David, reviewing section F of the PUD, specifically on lighting, I guess I don't really want to regulate any of the particular fixtures. I think we're covered in terms of what really is important, which is the amount of light that would leak into neighboring yards. So I don't want to over-regulate the type of fixture. I think what's important is making sure it doesn't reach into the neighboring yards, which is addressed in the lighting section for both A and B. So again, none of us are lighting experts in terms of actual fixtures. I think we should just rely on what the code is, or at least what's been codified here, to cover us for that versus over-regulating a specific type of fixture or height specifically related to that.
And I'm glad you brought up the section, because I did, well, never mind, it's 10 to 7, so it's okay with whatever hours.
Yes. So that's just my opinion. I think we should, it's covering it pretty well. I just don't want to over-regulate that aspect.
Yeah, I agree with that, and, you know, it sounds like the petitioner has done a great job meeting with the neighbors and getting their input, and I'm not a fan of big government at all, and over-regulation if it's not needed. I've stated that many, many times, and I have all faith that if there was something going on and there was light leaking out, that the petitioner would take care of that whenever that was needed. So I agree with you, or Vice Chair.
Alternatively, we could turn to our talented staff and simply specify that the lighting, that the recommendation is for valid lighting as much as possible, which I believe you had written into your original recommendation, with any deviation approved by staff.
Is that it? We're not adding anything, we're not really adding anything
In that case,
at that
no.
point?
No,
Okay.
as far as the recommendation.
Well, besides the regular.
Because it's already
conditions
in
there.
for
Low level
section F.
valid lighting
Okay.
is
Yep.
encouraged in development area B.
Yeah, I think the only difference there would be that staff would be able to tell them where lights are going.
Which would be in the site plan review kind of anyway. There at least would be oversight to it in the site.
There would be.
I make the motion to approve with the 2 conditions outlined by staff.
Are they conditions or they just?
I think just
Yeah, but-
as recommended.
As
As
written.
recommended.
As recommended by
staff.
staff.
Sure.
Okay, second.
All right, so we have a motion by Commissioner Praddick, a second by Commissioner Daniels. Is there any further discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll go ahead with the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, and then that will go forward then to City Council for March 21st. Moving on to informational, item number 1, introduction of City of Green Bay planner Dina Mooney.
Yes, thank you. Let me introduce you to Dina Mooney. She's our new planner one with the city, started last week.
Last Monday.
Last Monday, and this is our plan commission. You can see all their names.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
a few up there. We have one missing, but I just thought maybe you'd want to take 30 seconds or something, just introduce yourself and.
So my name is Dina Mooney. I've been a planner for a very long time. The first part of my career was a city planner in Southern Virginia for 2 years, and then moved back to Wisconsin. I'm from the area, and was a planner in River Falls. So I worked in a college town, which was really fun, and it was a really interesting community. I loved it there. But for the last 15 years, I was the county planner in Calumet County. I live in Alloway, so the commute for 15 years to Chilton was kind of hard. And anyway, I decided to change gears and opened a business in downtown Green Bay. And now that that's all...
Time for a plug.
Local Wisco is my business. But now that that's all set up, I don't really need to be at the store as much. So I have an opportunity here to help the team wherever I can help them and, yeah, make things a little easier.
Dina
Yeah, it's
has
been fun.
a lot of great experience, and I think we're going to really benefit from her private business owner experience of starting up a business and operating a business in downtown and bring that perspective to us. I think all of us planners live downtown.
I live downtown.
Most of our staff does
I mean,
actually.
within a mile around. But, Yeah, so we're real excited to have her.
Welcome to the team.
Welcome indeed.
And I too have been in your shoes. I do. I'm currently on the Historic Preservation Commission for the Village of Alloway, and I've also been on their Parks and Rec committee, but I'm not on that anymore. But anyway, so I've been in your shoes on that side of the table.
Nice. All right, then moving on to director's report. I don't see Mr. Sexualty.
No, we have no director, so I'm just going to add the one thing that is important to me. We sent out the request for proposals for the comp plan creation. We got 6 responses from some national companies and some really neat coalitions of planning firms, engineering firms. So we're going to get down and dirty into that this next couple weeks. We have a ranking criteria and all that kind of thing, and then we usually bring in 2 or 3 of them in to interview before we pick one. But just wanted to keep you up to date with that. The council was generous enough to provide us the funds to hire out. Our thought process was always we were going to be able to do it in-house, and we realized we can't keep up with what we have regularly, much less take on a giant project like that. So we anticipate, I continuously say 18 to 24 months, but that is probably even a fast track timeline for something like that. But
For completion?
for completion,
Okay.
yeah. But so that'll be starting. JBS site project, again, these are very planning related, so what I do. They had a stakeholder meeting recently, and they're gearing up for a Saturday larger neighborhood meeting. Stakeholders, 40 stakeholders of all different fields and interests. And so that consulting firm, which is Grafe and Muse out of Chicago, Grafe out of Green Bay, are going to be running that Saturday meeting. It'll be charrette style, so there'll be tables. You're all more than welcome to come. I believe it's at the Kroc? I think it's at the Kroc Center.
Yeah, next Saturday.
Next Saturday.
Not this
Oh, not
Saturday.
next Saturday. So I encourage everybody to come to that. It should be very interesting. Muse is a very well-renowned public engagement company, and Grafe is good as well. So, do you have anything you want to add to the director's report?
216 North Military was held by the
No.
city council, but it did not get sent back, so don't worry. They directed staff to do a developer's agreement that'll go through the RDA, and they'll bring that forward at the same time.
Okay.
So, it's not coming back here.
Okay.
But it did
Not
not
yet.
get approved yet.
Not yet. They could always.
Not yet.
Don't even put it up there.
And then the last thing I want to mention is Miss Steele, our loyal and wonderful clerk, is leaving us.
Yeah,
She is
she got
going.
sick of us.
Yeah, she is staying with the city, however, she's going down into finance. So we will probably have a new Jess coming in a couple weeks.
Oh dear.
Right? And you can all yell at her when you see her. For banning us.
Our congratulations to her and our thanks to her.
Thank
Yes,
you.
of course.
Thank you.
And that's really all I have.
All right. All right, the date of the next meeting is March 27th, 2023.
Motion
Can
to
I ask a
adjourn.
question?
Go.
For-
Take it back, take it back.
Oh my God, I thought you said nope.
Yes, Michael?
I thought you said no too.
Sorry, no, I take it back, you go.
Can we get a clarification on opening the floor during main motions? Because I believe that's the practice of the council, at least, of when they make the motion first to start the discussion, and then if they want to open the floor to aid in the discussion, they open the floor during the motion. So just a
Okay.
clarification would be helpful on that.
Sure, and I am not an expert on Robert's rules, so we will definitely have that and bring that back for the next meeting to let you know.
I think that's the difference between commission, and some of us were talking about it afterwards too, that in order to start the conversation on an agenda item, someone makes a motion to start the discussion. Otherwise, it's just informal conversation. And so that'd be a clarification on, that'd be helpful.
Okay.
Because I've definitely seen the meetings where the motion is made and then the floor is opened
Yes.
So.
Motion made and seconded, and then the floor is open. Are there still a motion?
Maybe not the
on floor?
seconded,
It's
maybe that was
usually-
the difference.
It's
Yeah.
usually a motion and then the floor is open, but, yeah, I'm not sure.
It's that second.
I will
think
find
the
out,
second
I will
was what-
find out and get the actual,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll lawyer up.
I think when there's a motion on the floor has been made and seconded, you have to rule on the motion before you carry.
Can go
I
to the
think
next
so,
thing, that
because
one
you-
has
You
to-
can't even amend that motion without.
Right.
Voting on it.
Correct.
Without voting on it,
Yeah.
so, but I'll get clarification, Michael, well, we'll get it done.
And I have a question that's a little closer to the ground. We spent several years getting the Webster Avenue reconstruction done. I'm wondering if there is if there are plans for any further planting for what is intended to be a major entrance into the city. It's pretty scruffy now, and I'm very curious about that.
Yeah, now I don't have the details on this, but from my understanding, so the scruffy nature of the median is because the natural vegetation has not had a chance to take over the weeds yet. So it usually takes about 4 years or so controlled for that to happen. And then once that happens, my understanding, trees are being proposed, I'm not sure in the median all over or just on the sides of the street, but that trees would be added to the streetscape. To what extent, I'm not sure. That is a public works project, but they have been definitely discussing. The forester has been wanting to put trees in there, and so, yes. Yes, there'll be something.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to hear that.
Can I ask?
Unfortunately.
Well, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
So a motion by Vice Chair Miller, second by Commissioner Bremer to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, goodbye, everyone. Recording stopped.
I hope you're feeling well, Sid.